the biggest secret billionaires don't want you to know now. If you feel like there's something about wealth that nobody is telling you, you're right. And today, I want to speak to you directly, not as a guru, not as a billionaire, not as a mentor sitting on some mountaintop of prosperity, but as a friend who finally uncovered the truth. A truth that explains why some people rise effortlessly while others struggle for decades, even though they work harder, push harder, sacrifice more. A truth that the wealthiest people in the world quietly understand, yet almost never speak about openly. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. Once you see how it works, you won't be able to return to your old way of thinking about money, success, or prosperity. Because here's the shocking part. The secret isn't hidden in offshore accounts, private investment clubs, or mastermind retreats that cost more than a car. No. The real secret is happening every day, in plain sight, right in front of everyone's eyes. But society is trained not to notice it. And billionaire companies, from Apple to Amazon, from Tesla to Meta, use this exact principle to multiply their wealth at levels that almost seem unfair, unless you know how to use it for yourself. You're about to discover the core psychological code, the prosperity formula, the internal switch that turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. This isn't just about money. It's about identity. It's about the invisible blueprint shaping every decision you make, every opportunity you attract, and every limitation you unconsciously allow to stay in your life. Billionaires guard this because if everyone truly understood it, the entire world would change. The gap between the wealthy and the struggling would shrink instantly. And that's why this conversation is so important. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly understanding how wealth really works, not the surface-level advice, but the inner mechanics. Imagine knowing exactly why Jeff Bezos keeps scaling, why Warren Buffett keeps winning, why Oprah Winfrey became unstoppable despite every obstacle stacked against her. Imagine having their level of clarity, their level of belief, their level of internal certainty, because success starts long before the money arrives, and so does failure. If you've ever felt stuck, blocked, frustrated, or like you're missing one final piece, today is the day everything shifts. You didn't click this video by accident. You were drawn here by curiosity, yes, but also by something deeper. A part of you knows there's more available to you. A part of you knows you were meant to live in abundance, not in limitation. And a part of you is tired of pretending that the old way of thinking is enough. So today, I'm going to reveal the biggest secret billionaires don't want you to know. The one they live by, even if they never say it out loud. The one that quietly shapes their fortune and their future. And by the end of this video, you will have a new understanding of wealth so powerful, so liberating, that you will never see your life or your potential the same way again. Are you ready? Then let's begin. Topic 1. The hidden blueprint behind every billionaire's rise. There is a moment, an almost invisible turning point, in the life of every billionaire, every self-made success story, every person who rose from obscurity to extraordinary wealth. A moment when something internal clicks, a quiet realization that the rules the rest of the world follows simply don't apply to them anymore. And this is where the biggest secret begins. Before any company was created, before any investment was made, before any breakthrough idea emerged, there was a shift inside the person, a shift in identity, a shift in self-concept, a shift in what they believed was possible, allowed, and available to them. And what makes this so fascinating is that while most people are desperately trying to copy billionaire strategies, systems, routines, or investment tactics, the wealthy are operating from a completely different internal blueprint, a blueprint most people never discover. Think about someone like Warren Buffett. People obsess over his investing strategies, but that's not where his real wealth began. It started when he was a young boy going door to door selling gum and soda, not because he needed the money, but because he already identified himself as someone who understood value, growth, and opportunity. His fortune began long before Berkshire Hathaway existed. It began in the identity he created for himself. Or consider Jeff Bezos. Everyone admires Amazon, the logistics, the technology, the business model. But the real secret wasn't Amazon. It was the mindset behind Amazon, the willingness to think exponentially while everyone else thought linearly. Bezos didn't just build a company, he built a belief system that growth has no ceiling, that market potential is limitless, that the world bends for the person who dares to challenge it with enough conviction. This is what people miss. Billionaires don't operate from the question, "What can I achieve with what I have?" They operate from the belief, "What can I create that does not yet exist?" This shift in thinking is the invisible dividing line between wealth and struggle. Most people approach life based on resources, while billionaires approach it based on resourcefulness. Most people worry about limitations, while billionaires expand their capacity. Most people look for permission, while billionaires look for possibilities. The difference isn't intelligence, it isn't luck, it isn't privilege, it's identity. And your identity, the story you are conditioned to believe about who you are, runs your life more powerfully than any strategy ever will. If you believe you're someone who has to work twice as hard to get half as much, your mind will continuously find ways to make that belief true. If you believe money is scarce, unpredictable, or difficult to earn, your decisions will reflect that belief in every area of your life. You will unconsciously sabotage opportunities that contradict your internal story. But if you shift that identity, if you begin to see yourself as someone capable, worthy, and destined for abundance, your actions, your energy, your creativity, and your results begin to shift instantly. Billionaires are not protecting a tactic. They're protecting an identity framework that, if widely understood, would make the entire world richer. Companies like Apple, Tesla, and Meta were built on this identity-level thinking. Steve Jobs famously said that the moment you realize the world is built by people no smarter than you, everything changes. That single realization freed him to create products that redefined entire industries. Elon Musk operates from a similar framework, acting from an identity of possibility so vast that he confidently launches rockets into space and builds cars without engines while the world watches in disbelief. His identity stretches beyond conventional limits, and because of that, his results stretch beyond them too. These individuals are not anomalies. They are examples of what happens when someone understands the secret that their inner state creates their outer wealth. The truth billionaires don't want you to know is that wealth is not a result of strategies. Strategies only work when the identity behind them is aligned with success. Wealth is a consequence of how you perceive yourself in relation to the world. It comes from the internal blueprint through which you interpret opportunities, challenges, risks, and rewards. When your identity tells you that you are someone capable of extraordinary achievement, your actions naturally follow that belief. And when your actions match the internal identity of someone destined for success, wealth becomes almost inevitable. This is why two people can have the same opportunity yet produce completely different outcomes. One person sees risk, danger, and potential loss. The other sees growth, leverage, and potential expansion. It's the same situation, but interpreted through two different internal maps. Billionaires don't see the world the way most people do, because they don't see themselves the way most people do. And once you understand this, you stop trying to copy their habits and start adopting their mindset. You stop focusing on tactics and start focusing on identity. You stop trying to force success and instead allow it to flow from who you become. Imagine, just for a moment, what would happen if you rewrote your internal blueprint. What would open up for you? What opportunities would you finally say yes to? What limiting beliefs would dissolve the moment you realized they were never yours to begin with? What level of courage would emerge if you saw yourself as the kind of person who could build, create, transform, and elevate anything you touched? Because here is the truth. You have access to the same internal switch every billionaire discovered. And once you flip it, your life stops operating on effort and starts operating on alignment. You stop chasing money and begin attracting it. You stop feeling behind and start feeling powerful. You stop asking, "How do I survive?" and start asking, "How far can I go?" This is the hidden blueprint behind every billionaire's rise. Not the strategies they use, but the self-perception that fuels everything they touch. And the moment you shift your identity, you step into the same field of possibility they operate from. The wealthiest people in the world aren't guarding money secrets. They're guarding mindset secrets, identity secrets, consciousness secrets. And now that you've seen the first piece, everything else will start falling into place. Topic 2. How billionaires think in a completely different dimension. If you've ever wondered why billionaires make decisions that seem almost irrational to the average person, it's because they're not thinking on the same dimension as everyone else. They operate from a mental altitude so high that the rest of the world often misinterprets their moves as risky, strange, or reckless. But from their vantage point, their choices are logical, predictable, even obvious. This is not intelligence or luck. It's a different level of consciousness, a different operating system. And this difference explains why billionaire companies rise while others plateau, why certain individuals continue expanding while the majority remain stuck in cycles of fear, scarcity, and hesitation. Most people live in what could be called first-dimensional thinking, survival. They make decisions based on fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of running out. They wake up each day managing emergencies, bills, deadlines, responsibilities, expectations. There is nothing wrong with this, but it creates a mental world where the primary goal is avoiding danger. And when your mind is wired for survival, abundance feels impossible. Prosperity feels distant. You cannot think expansively while living reactively. You cannot create extraordinary outcomes when your mind is constantly calculating how to stay safe. But billionaires operate from a very different state. Instead of seeing the world as a place of limited resources and endless competition, they see it as a playground of limitless potential. They don't ask, "What can I lose?" They ask, "What can I build?" They don't wonder, "What if it goes wrong?" They wonder, "What if it transforms everything?" They don't fear uncertainty. They collaborate with it. They don't resist change. They leverage it. And this is why they see opportunities years before the world catches up. Their minds are not waiting for permission to expand. Their minds assume expansion as the default. Take Elon Musk as an example. When most of the automotive industry concluded that electric cars were too costly, unrealistic, and limited, Musk saw a different dimension of the future, one where sustainability, technology, and innovation would merge into something revolutionary. People mocked him, dismissed him, criticized him, called him delusional. But he wasn't operating on their level. His thinking existed in a dimension where possibility outweighed fear, where long-term vision overshadowed immediate obstacles. And because he thought differently, he created differently. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, they weren't products of resources. They were products of dimensional thinking. Another example is Oprah Winfrey. She didn't just build a media empire, she built a universe of influence, healing, transformation, and human connection. She didn't think like a talk show host. She thought like a visionary whose purpose was to shift global consciousness. While others saw a daytime TV show, she saw a platform to elevate humanity. Her wealth didn't come from following trends, it came from creating them. She tapped into a higher dimension of thought rooted in intention, emotional intelligence, service, and belief. And the world responded accordingly. When billionaires make moves that confuse the public, like buying companies with no obvious purpose, investing billions into unknown technologies, or betting on ideas that sound impossible, they're not being reckless. They're following inner certainty. They're acting from an identity aligned with expansion rather than contraction. They see the entire chessboard, not just the next move. And that perspective gives them an advantage that almost feels supernatural. The key insight here is that wealth doesn't simply follow money. Wealth follows perception. The person who sees more, builds more. The person who believes more, creates more. The person who imagines more, receives more. This is where the world gets it wrong. People believe they need to earn more money before they think like a billionaire. But the truth is the opposite. You must learn to think like a billionaire before you earn like one. You must train your mind to navigate possibilities, not fears. You must shift from asking, "What will happen if this fails?" to asking, "What extraordinary thing might happen if this succeeds?" This dimensional shift doesn't require money. It requires awareness. It requires the courage to challenge your defaults. It requires the willingness to release old mental scripts inherited from family, society, and past experiences. You were not born thinking in limitation. You learned it. You absorbed it. It was programmed into you. But the moment you recognize that these programs are optional, everything becomes flexible again. Everything becomes available. Imagine living in a world where you trust your ideas more than others doubt them. Imagine seeing opportunity where others see obstacles. Imagine operating each day with the confidence that the universe is conspiring in your favor, not against you. This is how billionaires think. They collaborate with abundance. They align with possibility. They don't shrink their dreams to match their circumstances. They expand their circumstances to match their dreams. One of the greatest secrets billionaires embody is this: money is not the goal. Money is the side effect of thinking in a higher dimension. Money comes to those who create value, who solve problems, who envision what the world has not yet imagined. That level of thinking requires emotional mastery, not just intelligence. It requires inner clarity, not just outer resources. It requires an identity that believes deeply and unwaveringly that what you desire is not only possible, it is inevitable if you stay aligned with the vision long enough. The moment you elevate your thinking, your life begins to rearrange itself around your new frequency. Opportunities appear that were invisible before. Ideas flow that were previously blocked by fear. People enter your life who match your new level of belief. This is not magic. This is psychology. This is neuroscience. This is the internal mechanics of prosperity. Billionaires simply learned how to operate their minds at a level where success becomes the natural consequence of how they think. And now, you are beginning to access that same dimension. The more you understand this, the more your perception changes. And when your perception changes, your destiny follows. Topic 3. The silent power of self-worth, the real currency of the ultra-wealthy. There is an invisible force that determines how much wealth a person will allow themselves to receive, and it is not intelligence, education, hard work, or luck. It is self-worth. The world thinks billionaires rise because they have superior strategies or extraordinary opportunities. But beneath every success story lies a quiet, unshakable sense of internal value. Self-worth is the real currency of the ultra-wealthy, and most people never learn how deeply this affects their income, their decisions, and the level of prosperity they unconsciously permit in their lives. Money flows to those who believe they deserve it, not in an arrogant or entitled way, but in a grounded, energetic, identity-level way. People who become wealthy carry an internal permission slip that says, "I am worthy of having more. I am worthy of creating more. I am worthy of receiving more." This inner permission shapes their behavior long before external success arrives. It influences how they negotiate, how they take risks, how they pursue ideas, how they handle failure, and how they position themselves in the world. Most people don't lack opportunities. They lack the self-worth required to claim them. Look at someone like Sarah Blakely, the billionaire founder of Spanx. She started her business with $5,000 in savings and no experience in fashion or manufacturing. Yet she built a global empire because her self-worth was stronger than her fears. For years, she told herself a story that wasn't rooted in her circumstances, but in her potential. She believed she could create something valuable even when the world gave her no guarantees. She walked into boardrooms where no one took her seriously, but her internal certainty was louder than their doubts. And that certainty, rooted in self-worth, became the foundation of her fortune. Self-worth is what allows people to keep going when others quit. It's what keeps them expanding when others shrink. It's what empowers them to see themselves as creators rather than survivors. If you observe any billionaire's journey closely, you'll notice something remarkable. They acted like someone who mattered long before the world thought they did. They had conversations beyond their current level. They took risks that didn't match their bank account. They envisioned futures that didn't match their present reality. Their self-worth was so strong that reality eventually had to adjust to meet it. And the opposite is true as well. People with low self-worth unconsciously sabotage their own progress. They turn down opportunities because they don't feel ready. They undercharge for their value because they don't want to seem greedy. They stay in environments that limit them because they don't want to disappoint others. They cling to comfort even when it costs them their greatness. Their internal programming says, "This is as good as it gets," and their life obeys that script perfectly. The universe mirrors who you believe yourself to be. It cannot give you more than you feel worthy of receiving. This is why two people can start with the same idea, the same talent, or the same opportunity. but only one becomes wildly successful. The successful one does not have more potential. They simply have fewer internal restrictions. They don't second-guess every step. They don't apologize for wanting more. They don't shrink themselves to fit other people's expectations. They live with a sense of self-worth so expansive that it naturally attracts wealth, opportunity, and people who recognize their value. Consider Howard Schultz, the billionaire behind Starbucks. He grew up in extreme poverty in a Brooklyn housing project, and everything in his environment told him that success was for other people. But Schultz made a choice early in life. He refused to let his circumstances define his worth. When he first encountered a European-style coffee shop in Italy, he didn't just see coffee, he saw community, connection, possibility. And even though investors rejected him repeatedly, he continued anyway because his self-worth was stronger than the world's rejection. The Starbucks empire wasn't built on coffee. It was built on Schultz's belief that he had something valuable to bring into the world. Self-worth is magnetic. It inspires trust. It creates momentum. It makes people want to support your ideas. When someone stands firmly in their value, it feels different. They speak differently. They carry themselves differently. They make decisions with clarity instead of fear. And this is why wealth gravitates to them. They resonate with abundance rather than scarcity. The biggest secret billionaires don't want you to know is that wealth is not created from the outside in. It is created from the inside out. You cannot outperform your self-worth. You cannot exceed the limits you impose on yourself. You cannot receive more than what you believe you deserve. But the moment you expand your self-worth, your reality expands with it. Suddenly, opportunities that once seemed impossible begin to feel natural. Ideas that once felt intimidating begin to feel exciting. Risks that once felt overwhelming begin to feel purposeful. Imagine for a moment how your life would change if you elevated your self-worth by even 10%. What would you stop tolerating? What would you start pursuing? What conversations would you finally have? What dreams would you finally honor without guilt or hesitation? When you raise your self-worth, you stop negotiating with your limitations. You stop justifying why you can't. You stop dimming your light so others won't feel uncomfortable. You begin to see yourself as someone who is capable of extraordinary things, and once you see it, you start acting in alignment with it. The wealthiest people in the world don't guard their financial strategies nearly as fiercely as they guard their self-worth. They know that if the world understood the power of believing in one's own value, billions would rise overnight. They know that prosperity isn't luck, it's identity. They know that their fortune is rooted not in what they do, but in who they believe they are. And this is the piece that changes everything. Because once you realize that wealth is a reflection of self-worth, you can begin reshaping your entire destiny. The truth is, there is nothing separating you from the people you admire except the level of worthiness you allow yourself to embody. And the moment you expand that worthiness, your life will begin to shift in ways that feel miraculous, but are actually just the natural consequence of seeing yourself clearly for the first time. Topic 4. The wealth frequency. Why billionaires operate on an energetic level. Most people never access. There is a reason why some people seem to attract wealth effortlessly, while others work for years without breaking through, and it has nothing to do with luck or fate. It has everything to do with frequency. Billionaires operate on a different energetic wavelength, a state of consciousness where ideas flow, opportunities align, and bold decisions feel natural rather than terrifying. This is not mystical or abstract. It is the psychological and emotional frequency of abundance, a calibrated internal state that shapes thoughts, behaviors, and outcomes with astonishing precision. Most people try to change their lives through effort, action, and discipline alone, but billionaires change their reality by changing their frequency first. Money responds to energy. It responds to belief. It responds to confidence, clarity, emotional stability, and the willingness to act in alignment with a vision before the world validates it. When someone operates at a high wealth frequency, their relationship with possibility expands. They begin to perceive opportunities that are invisible to those trapped in survival mode. They take risks that others fear because their emotional foundation is strong enough to hold uncertainty. They trust themselves enough to step into uncharted territory. And this internal stability creates an external reality filled with momentum, growth, and compounding success. Think about someone like Richard Branson. His wealth didn't emerge from one company. It emerged from a frequency of expansion, curiosity, and playful confidence. Branson's energy has always been bold, fearless, and adventurous, and that frequency attracted ventures ranging from airlines to music labels to space tourism. The world saw risk. He saw alignment. The world saw impossibility. He saw opportunity. His frequency allowed him to navigate challenges with optimism instead of fear, solutions instead of problems. And because of this, wealth followed him not by chance, but by energetic coherence. The truth is that everyone broadcasts a frequency around money. Some people radiate scarcity, fear, hesitation, and self-doubt. Others radiate empowerment, clarity, confidence, and expansion. Most people are unaware of the frequency they are sending out, yet they experience its consequences every day. If someone feels anxious around money, they attract financial instability. If they feel undeserving, they repel opportunities. If they feel overwhelmed, they make decisions that keep them stuck. But when someone feels grounded, capable, and aligned, money begins to flow more consistently. This is why the wealthy keep getting wealthier. They maintain a frequency that continually attracts more of what they already embody. The wealth frequency begins with emotional regulation. Billionaires have an unusual ability to stay calm under pressure. While others panic, they pause. While others react, they observe. While others collapse, they expand. This emotional mastery gives them power over uncertainty, instead of letting uncertainty control them. When Elon Musk's rockets exploded, he didn't interpret it as failure. He interpreted it as calibration. When Mark Cuban lost everything early in his entrepreneurial journey, he didn't shrink. He doubled down on self-belief and rebuilt an even bigger empire. Their frequency wasn't shaken by external events because their internal identity wasn't dependent on external validation. This emotional stability creates mental clarity. People stuck in scarcity cannot think clearly because fear narrows perception. The brain literally becomes blind to opportunity when operating in survival mode. But abundance expands awareness. It opens mental pathways that allow creativity, innovation, and insight to flourish. Billionaires solve problems not because they have more intelligence, but because their frequency gives them access to more of their own intelligence. Their minds are not weighed down by fear. They are liberated by possibility. And this liberated state leads to breakthroughs that the world eventually labels as brilliance. A powerful example of frequency in action is the story of Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle. He grew up in a lower middle-class family, faced countless challenges, and had no formal training in computer programming. But he carried an internal frequency of bold ambition, an almost magnetic certainty that he was meant for something extraordinary. That energetic conviction led him to build one of the most influential technology companies in history. Ellison's wealth was not a coincidence. It was the natural consequence of a frequency that refused to settle for mediocrity. The wealth frequency is also deeply connected to identity. When someone sees themselves as valuable, capable, and powerful, they naturally make decisions that reflect that identity. They speak differently. They invest differently. They pursue opportunities that align with their potential rather than their fears. And because their actions match a high-frequency identity, the universe responds accordingly. People who operate in abundance don't chase money. They align with it. They expand toward it. They expect it. And money, responding to the energy of expectation, gravitates toward them. Imagine how your life would transform if you shifted your frequency just slightly toward abundance. What ideas would come alive? What opportunities would you finally recognize? What decisions would feel exciting rather than threatening? Even a small shift in frequency can create exponential changes in your reality. When your energy rises, everything you attract rises with it. This is why the wealth frequency is the most powerful asset you can develop. Because it influences everything else: your mindset, your behavior, your risk tolerance, your creativity, your resilience, your relationships, your financial decisions. The biggest misunderstanding about wealth is that people think it is created through external force. They think they must grind, hustle, sacrifice, and suffer their way into prosperity. But billionaires know that abundance is created through internal alignment. Their energy creates their strategy, not the other way around. Their frequency creates their opportunities, not luck. Their belief shapes their destiny, not circumstance. And when you begin to elevate your own frequency, you start stepping into the same field of possibility that billionaires operate from. A field where growth accelerates, synchronicities appear, and success begins to unfold with a sense of inevitability. The wealth frequency is available to everyone, regardless of background, education, or current financial reality. It is accessed through awareness, emotional mastery, self-belief, and the willingness to step into a higher identity. Once you shift your frequency, the world starts responding to you in a completely different way. And that shift becomes the foundation upon which your future wealth is built. Topic 5. The compounding effect of courage. Why billionaires make moves others only dream about. If there is one trait that consistently separates billionaires from the rest of the world, it isn't intelligence, talent, or even creativity. It is courage. But not the loud, dramatic kind of courage people imagine when they think of entrepreneurs risking everything. It is a quieter, more enduring courage. The courage to make decisions before the path is clear, to move when others hesitate, to trust themselves when no one else does. This form of courage compounds over time, creating results that appear extraordinary from the outside but feel natural to the person who built them. Billionaires don't make one big, brave decision. They make thousands of small, courageous moves that accumulate into a life of massive impact and wealth. Every billionaire's story begins with a moment when they acted before they felt ready. Consider Jeff Bezos leaving his high-paying Wall Street job to pursue an online bookstore at a time when the internet was still considered a novelty. People thought he was insane. They questioned his logic, his timing, his career judgment. But Bezos wasn't making decisions based on fear. He was making decisions based on vision. Courage pulled him forward, even though logic told him to stay comfortable. That single act of courage set off a chain reaction that became Amazon, one of the most influential companies in history. If Bezos had waited for certainty, Amazon would not exist today. Courage is the catalyst for breakthroughs. It is the bridge between where you are and the life you truly want. Without courage, ideas remain in your mind and never become reality. Without courage, opportunities slip through your fingers because fear whispers that you're not ready. Without courage, you live the same year repeatedly and call it stability. Billionaires understand that courage is the most valuable investment they can make, not in the market, not in their business, but in themselves. When you invest in courage, the world pays you back in ways you cannot predict but can always feel. Look at the story of John Coombe, the co-founder of WhatsApp. He grew up poor in Ukraine, barely had enough money to survive in the United States, and lived off food stamps for years. But he had the courage to believe his ideas were valuable even when his life circumstances suggested otherwise. Coombe didn't come from privilege, connections, or financial security. He came from adversity. What made him extraordinary was his willingness to act on a vision even though he had nothing to fall back on. His courage led him to create an app that eventually sold to Meta for $19 billion. People saw the acquisition and called it luck. They didn't see the courage that built it. Courage compounds because each brave decision strengthens the identity behind it. When you prove to yourself that you can take risks and still survive, your confidence grows. When your confidence grows, your decisions become bolder. When your decisions become bolder, your results expand. And as your results expand, your identity shifts once again. This positive upward spiral is what billionaires ride to the top. They are not fearless. They have simply strengthened their courage muscle to the point where fear no longer dictates their choices. Most people misunderstand courage. They believe courage means eliminating fear. In reality, courage means acting in spite of fear. Courage is not the absence of doubt. It is the refusal to let doubt make your decisions for you. Billionaires don't wait to feel confident before they move. They move first, and confidence follows. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They create momentum by choosing not to pause. They understand that hesitation kills more dreams than failure ever will. A powerful example of this is J.K. Rowling, whose story has become a global symbol of perseverance. Although she is not a billionaire today due to philanthropic contributions, she once reached billionaire status through the simple act of daring to believe that a story she wrote in a cafe could change her life. She faced rejection after rejection, personal hardship, depression, and financial struggle. But she continued. Not because she had guarantees, because she had courage. She acted as though her work mattered even when the world repeatedly told her otherwise. That courage built one of the most iconic literary worlds in history. What most people don't realize is that courage is a financial asset. It determines how you negotiate, how you invest, how you pursue opportunities, how you reinvent yourself after setbacks, and how you hold your worth in a world that constantly tests it. People with courage make money because they do the things that others avoid. They start the business. They leave the job. They raise their prices. They pitch the idea. They partner with people who elevate them. They take the meeting that scares them. They step into rooms that make them feel small, and they grow inside those rooms until they no longer fit. The absence of courage leads to the compounding effect of regret. Every time you hesitate, you reinforce the belief that you cannot handle more. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you shrink your identity. Every time you say, "not now," you delay the life that is waiting for you. Billionaires simply understand that discomfort is the currency of expansion. They lean into it rather than retreat from it. Imagine what would happen if, for the next year of your life, you simply acted with 10% more courage, 10% more boldness, 10% more willingness to trust yourself. You would make different decisions, attract different people, and open different doors. Your identity would evolve. Your possibilities would expand. The trajectory of your life would bend toward greatness simply because you chose to stop shrinking in the moments that mattered. The reason courage is such a powerful secret among billionaires is that it gives them access to opportunities long before they are safe or proven. They are early. They are bold. They are willing to lose so they can eventually win bigger. They understand that success is not built on certainty. It is built on motion. You cannot manifest abundance from a place of hesitation. You cannot step into your purpose if you are anchored to fear. Courage is the unspoken wealth code that unlocks everything else. And here's the most important truth. Courage is a choice. It is not a talent, not a genetic gift, not a personality type. It is a decision you make repeatedly until it becomes who you are. The moment you choose courage, your life begins to compound upward. And that upward trajectory is exactly what billionaires ride all the way to the top. Topic 6. The Billionaire Time Distortion: How the Wealthy Bend Time. While others feel trapped by it. If you've ever wondered why billionaires seem to achieve in a decade what most people can't achieve in a lifetime, it's because they relate to time in a completely different way. While most people feel chased, pressured, overwhelmed, or limited by time, billionaires treat time as a flexible resource, something to be expanded, multiplied, leveraged, and strategically molded to serve their vision. This is one of the biggest secrets the ultra-wealthy understand. Time is not something you manage. It is something you master internally before you can master it externally. Most people live in a state of constant time scarcity. They wake up already stressed, already behind, already juggling responsibilities, already fighting an invisible countdown. Their days feel reactive instead of intentional. They believe time controls them, not the other way around. And because they feel time slipping away, they rush through life, making decisions from urgency rather than clarity. This creates shallow thinking, inconsistent actions, and a constant sense that abundance is always someday, never now. But billionaires operate from a completely different perspective. They slow time down. Not literally, but cognitively. They stretch a moment long enough to think deeply, to make intentional choices, to consider long-term impact. They expand a day by focusing on high-value decisions rather than frantic activity. They create leverage through people, systems, technology, and delegation, turning 1 hour of their time into the equivalent of 10 hours of someone else's. To them, time is abundant, not because they have more of it, but because they use it differently. Consider Warren Buffett's approach to time. He spends most of his day reading, thinking, reflecting, and analyzing, not rushing, not reacting, not scrambling. He once said, "I insist on a lot of time being spent, almost every day, to just sit and think." Because he understands that deep thinking multiplies time. A single well-thought-out decision can create billions. A rushed decision can destroy everything. Buffett bends time by slowing it. He expands the present to shape the future. Another example is Steve Jobs, who often took long, uninterrupted walks to think, reflect, and create mental clarity. These walks led to some of Apple's most revolutionary ideas. Jobs didn't fill his schedule with constant activity. He created space. Because space is where genius grows. When your mind has room to breathe, it produces insights that compress years of trial and error into a single epiphany. That is time distortion, the ability to achieve more by doing less, but thinking better. Billionaires also understand the power of compounding time. They don't chase instant gratification. They build systems that pay them repeatedly over long periods. While most people trade time for money, billionaires trade decisions for wealth. A single decision, an investment, a partnership, a business structure, can generate returns for decades. This is why Jeff Bezos said, "Your margin is my opportunity." He thinks in 10, 20, 30-year timelines, not short-term gains. To him, time is a landscape of possibility, not a restriction. Most people underestimate the value of a decade and overestimate the value of a day. They want overnight success, but resist the slow-building habits that make success inevitable. Billionaires flip this entirely. They know that consistent action over time compounds into results that look superhuman. They understand that the longer you stay aligned with a vision, the more the universe rearranges itself to support that vision. Time becomes their ally because they stop demanding fast results and start building powerful foundations. But the most profound part of billionaire time distortion is not external. It is psychological. The wealthy have mastered the ability to shift between present and future with ease. They visualize a future in such vivid detail that it becomes emotionally real, and then they behave in the present as if that future is already unfolding. This collapses the timeline between intention and reality. When your mind believes the future is certain, your actions become decisive. When your actions are decisive, results accelerate. This is why some people achieve in months what others struggle to build in years. Their relationship with time is not linear. It is fluid. Think of Elon Musk deciding to build SpaceX. People laughed at the idea of a private company launching rockets into space. They saw the current obstacles, the present limitations, the immediate challenges. Musk saw the future first, then walked backward into it, making decisions as if the vision was already inevitable. That is time distortion, living emotionally in the future while acting strategically in the present. Most people live emotionally in the past. Billionaires live emotionally in the future. Billionaires also understand that procrastination is not a time problem. It is a self-worth problem. When you do not believe your dreams are possible, you delay them. When you believe you are capable of extraordinary outcomes, you move, you act, you claim your future instead of postponing it. This is why high self-worth individuals make faster decisions. They trust themselves, and fast decisions create fast momentum, which compresses time even further. Imagine what would happen if you shifted your relationship with time. What if instead of feeling behind, you felt aligned? What if instead of rushing, you acted intentionally? What if instead of procrastinating, you trusted your next step? What if instead of believing time was slipping away, you believed time was expanding to support your purpose? You would think differently. You would move differently. Your creativity would expand. Your stress would decrease. Your confidence would deepen. Your opportunities would multiply. You would stop living in a cycle of urgency and begin living in a flow of clarity. Time would stop feeling like a burden and start feeling like a partner. The wealthiest people in the world don't have more time. They have more awareness of time. They treat it as the most powerful asset they possess. They do not waste it on doubt, fear, hesitation, or meaningless distractions. They use it to think, to create, to align, to delegate, to build, to rest, and to expand. Their mastery of time is one of the greatest secrets behind their success. The moment you begin seeing time as flexible, abundant, expandable, and responsive to your decisions, everything in your life begins to shift. You step into a level of power that most people never access. You begin to bend time instead of being bent by it, and that is one of the greatest advantages a human being can ever possess. Topic 7. The network effect of wealth. Why billionaires build relationships that reshape their destiny. One of the greatest secrets billionaires don't openly discuss is that wealth is rarely created alone. Not because they can't do things alone, but because they understand something most people never fully grasp. Relationships are the engines of prosperity. The conversations you participate in, the people you surround yourself with, the environments you place yourself in, they quietly determine your future more powerfully than talent, strategy, or even hard work. Billionaires operate from a fundamental truth that the masses often overlook. Proximity is power, and whoever you consistently stay close to, you eventually become. Wealthy individuals consciously build networks that elevate their identity, their thinking, their creativity, and their opportunities. They understand that every relationship is an exchange of energy, frequency, belief, and mindset, and they deliberately choose to connect with people who strengthen their vision rather than weaken it. This is one of the most profound differences between how billionaires build their lives and how most people build theirs. Most people choose relationships based on familiarity, comfort, or shared struggle. Billionaires choose relationships based on alignment, expansion, and shared possibility. When you observe the world's wealthiest, you'll notice that they orbit around each other. Elon Musk, Larry Page, and Sergey Brin exchange ideas that shape entire industries. Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, and countless thought leaders share creative visions that influence global consciousness. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger built a partnership so powerful that it became one of the greatest engines of compounded wealth in history. These connections aren't accidental. They are intentional. They form ecosystems of brilliance, trust, and mutual expansion. Environments where big thinking is normal, bold moves are expected, and abundance is the baseline. The average person underestimates how much relationships shape their identity. If you spend time with people who complain, you begin to complain. If you surround yourself with people who fear risk, your courage weakens. If you are constantly around individuals who expect little from life, your dreams shrink to match their expectations. But if you surround yourself with visionaries, your own vision expands. If you live around builders, you begin to build. If your conversations revolve around growth, prosperity, impact, and legacy, your identity evolves into someone capable of creating those outcomes. Human beings are social creatures, and we absorb the mindset of our environment the way lungs absorb oxygen. There's a reason billionaires invest heavily in mentors, advisors, coaches, masterminds, and high-level partnerships. They know that one conversation with the right person can save them years of mistakes. One idea sparked in the right room can generate millions. One connection can open doors they didn't even know existed. Wealth is not just about money. It is about information flow, opportunity access, and proximity to people who elevate your thinking. Billionaires position themselves in environments where their minds are continually stretched, challenged, and upgraded. A powerful example of this network effect is the rise of PayPal's founding team. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, Max Levchin, and several others eventually became some of the most influential entrepreneurs in modern history. After PayPal, they each went on to build companies like Tesla, SpaceX, YouTube, Yelp, LinkedIn, and Palantir. What made this group extraordinary wasn't just intelligence, it was the environment. They created a network of builders, risk-takers, innovators, and visionaries who supported each other long after their first company sold. Their success multiplied because they multiplied each other's success. Most people try to grow alone, but personal willpower can only take you so far. Environment is stronger than will. Identity is shaped by association. And the conversations you repeat daily become the thoughts you live with, the beliefs you operate from, and the results you eventually produce. Billionaires know this intimately. They guard their environment fiercely. They don't allow their energy to be drained by negativity, gossip, or drama. They don't participate in conversations that shrink their potential. They don't waste time with people who make them doubt their vision. Their relationships are intentional because their destiny is intentional. This doesn't mean billionaires are cold or disconnected. It means they understand the cost of misaligned relationships. They know that being around people who operate in scarcity can pull them back into scarcity. They know that staying around people who fear success will eventually make success feel dangerous. They know that emotional contagion is real. If you are consistently exposed to people who are afraid, defeated, or uninspired, you begin absorbing that mindset. And if you want to elevate your reality, you must elevate your environment first. Imagine how your life would change if you intentionally upgraded your relationships. If you spent time with people who inspire you instead of people who drain you. If you surrounded yourself with individuals who believe in possibility rather than limitations. If you entered rooms where your biggest dreams were considered normal instead of too much, your mindset would change, your confidence would grow, your ideas would expand, your opportunities would multiply. You would begin to rise naturally, simply because you were no longer being held back by environments misaligned with your future. Wealthy individuals also understand the power of contribution within relationships. They don't simply take, they give, support, uplift, and create value. This creates strong, loyal, mutually beneficial relationships that last for years and generate exponential returns. When you elevate others, you elevate yourself. When you help others grow, you grow. Billionaires understand this law of reciprocity deeply, which is why so many of them collaborate, mentor, and share knowledge with one another. The greatest truth behind the network effect is this: you do not rise to the level of your goals. You rise to the level of your environment. Your environment rewires your subconscious. It influences your decisions. It mirrors your possibilities. When you are in the right environment, success becomes not only possible, but inevitable. You may not be in a billionaire circle yet, but you can begin shaping your environment today. You can start by choosing better conversations, seeking mentors, connecting with ambitious people, joining communities aligned with your goals, and intentionally distancing yourself from relationships that shrink your identity. As your environment upgrades, your self-image upgrades. And as your self-image upgrades, your life begins to unfold in ways you once thought were impossible. Billionaires don't become wealthy and then find a powerful circle. They build the circle long before the wealth arrives. Their network is not a result of success. It is a foundation of success. And once you grasp this truth, you realize that the people you surround yourself with may very well be the biggest determinant of your destiny. Topic 8. The inner game of resilience. How billionaires turn setbacks into multi-million-dollar turning points. There is a moment in every billionaire's life when everything seems to collapse. A product fails, an investment goes wrong, a partnership dissolves, a market crashes, a lawsuit threatens everything. The public sees these moments as disasters, but billionaires perceive them differently. They see setbacks as raw material, fuel, data, feedback, insight, and direction. This is one of the greatest secrets the ultra-wealthy have mastered. Resilience is not about bouncing back. It is about transforming adversity into an advantage so powerful that it becomes a turning point in their destiny. Most people interpret setbacks as evidence that they should stop, slow down, or give up. They internalize failure, believing it reflects something wrong with them. But billionaires interpret setbacks as part of the journey, not the end of it. They expect challenges. They anticipate resistance. They understand that the path to greatness is not linear. It is filled with moments designed to stretch them into a new level of identity. Where most people see a closed door, billionaires see a hallway filled with new doors waiting to be opened. Consider the story of Walt Disney. Before he became a global icon, he was fired from a newspaper for lacking creativity. His first animation studio went bankrupt. He was rejected repeatedly by investors who believed Mickey Mouse would terrorize women. Yet Disney's resilience was legendary. Every failure sharpened his vision. Every setback expanded his imagination. His resilience eventually created Disneyland, an empire built not from perfection, but from relentless persistence. The world remembers his magic, but few remember the mountains he had to climb to bring that magic to life. Or look at the story of Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, one of the world's most successful hedge funds. Early in his career, Dalio made a catastrophic financial prediction that cost him everything. He lost his clients, his money, and nearly his reputation. But instead of breaking him, this setback transformed him. Dalio said it was the most painful experience of his life, and the most valuable. It forced him to build better systems, refine his thinking, and become more emotionally balanced. That one failure became the foundation of the principles that turned Bridgewater into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Resilience, in the billionaire mindset, is not emotional suppression. It is emotional mastery. It is the ability to feel disappointment without collapsing, the ability to feel fear without obeying it, the ability to feel uncertainty without retreating. Billionaires don't deny their emotions. They just refuse to be controlled by them. They allow failure to sting, but they don't allow it to define them. They allow setbacks to hurt, but they don't allow them to dictate their future. This emotional maturity gives them an extraordinary advantage. While others are paralyzed, they are already planning their next move. Billionaires also understand the law of perspective. They zoom out when others zoom in. When an obstacle appears, most people see it as a wall blocking their path. Billionaires see it as a temporary glitch in a much bigger picture. They zoom out far enough to remember their vision, their purpose, and the long-term trajectory they are committed to. This larger perspective makes setbacks feel smaller. It reduces emotional overwhelm and increases strategic clarity. When you can see beyond the moment, you gain power over the moment. Another example is Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba. Before building one of the largest e-commerce platforms in the world, Ma was rejected from over 30 jobs, including KFC. His applications to universities were denied repeatedly. His ideas were dismissed as impossible. Yet every rejection fortified him. Every no sharpened his determination. His resilience became his superpower. Instead of internalizing rejection, he used it to expand his capacity. And that inner expansion eventually led him to create a company worth hundreds of billions. What most people misunderstand about resilience is that it is not about being unbreakable. It is about becoming unshakable. Being unbreakable suggests rigid strength, a surface-level toughness that eventually cracks. Being unshakable means rooted strength, a deeper foundation that withstands storms without collapsing. Billionaires master this internal rootedness. They grow deeper, not just stronger. They become flexible, adaptable, and emotionally intelligent. They learn to bend so they do not break. And in that flexibility, they find their greatest breakthroughs. Resilience also creates a psychological advantage called identity reinforcement. Every time you overcome something hard, your identity expands. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. You stop seeing yourself as limited. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs perfect conditions to succeed. You begin seeing yourself as someone who can handle anything. And when your identity shifts, your destiny shifts. Billionaires build unshakable identities because they collect evidence of their own strength repeatedly. They don't avoid challenges. They use challenges to grow. Imagine how your life would evolve if you reinterpreted every setback you've ever experienced. What if instead of seeing them as proof that things were going wrong, you saw them as turning points? What if every disappointment was shaping your resilience, every delay strengthening your discipline, every failure refining your vision? You would stop being afraid of adversity. You would stop shrinking at the first sign of discomfort. You would step into challenges with the confidence that they are preparing you for the next level of your life. This is the inner game of resilience. It is not glamorous. It is not immediate. It is not always comfortable. But it is the secret code that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. Because the truth is, life will test you. Your dreams will test you. The universe will test your commitment to the path you say you want. And billionaires simply choose to pass those tests instead of interpreting them as signs to turn back. Resilience is one of the greatest wealth multipliers on Earth. Not because it guarantees success, but because it guarantees continuation. As long as you continue growing, evolving, adjusting, and moving forward, you cannot lose. You may fall, but you will rise higher. You may stumble, but you will gain wisdom. You may fail, but you will become the kind of person who succeeds inevitably. And once you become that person, wealth is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that gravitates toward you naturally, because you are the kind of person who cannot be stopped. Topic 9. The Inner Vision Portal. Why billionaires see the future before it arrives. If there is one ability that consistently sets billionaires apart from the rest of the world, it is their capacity to see the future long before it manifests. They possess an inner vision, an intuitive clarity, a perceptual advantage, a mental movie of what is yet to come, that guides their decisions with remarkable accuracy. This is not luck. This is not coincidence. This is the result of cultivating a mind so attuned to possibility, so trained to anticipate patterns, so skilled at imagining what others overlook, that the future becomes a familiar place rather than an unknown threat. Billionaires don't wait for the world to show them what is possible. They show the world what is possible. Most people see life through the rearview mirror of past experiences. They interpret the future based on their history, their limitations, their doubts, their traumas, and their old definitions of what they believe is realistic. But billionaires reject realism. Realism to them is simply a synonym for limitation. They operate from vision, not memory. They use imagination as strategy. They use intuition as data. They use possibility as a compass. And this creates a psychological advantage that compounds exponentially over time. Vision is not just about seeing what could be, it's about feeling it so deeply that your present reality begins aligning with it. When Jeff Bezos imagined Amazon, he didn't see an online bookstore. He felt the inevitability of global e-commerce before most people even understood what the internet was. When Elon Musk envisioned Tesla and SpaceX, he didn't see cars and rockets. He felt the emotional certainty that sustainability and space exploration were non-negotiable futures. When Oprah Winfrey built OWN, she didn't see a television network. She felt the rising global need for inspiration, healing, and emotional connection. Vision is emotional before it becomes logical. It resonates before it rationalizes. It whispers before it speaks loudly enough for the world to hear. This is why billionaires appear bold. They are not guessing. They are following an inner map that others cannot see. The inner vision portal works like this. When you allow your imagination to stretch beyond your current reality, your mind begins connecting dots that were previously invisible. It starts seeing patterns, opportunities, and innovations that would remain hidden if you were focused solely on what is. Vision is the bridge between the present and the future. It collapses time. It speeds up manifestation. And it makes you behave in ways that accelerate outcomes years ahead of schedule. Think of Steve Jobs standing on a stage unveiling the first iPhone. People were stunned. They did not see it coming. But Jobs had seen it for years. He had walked through that future in his mind, tasted it, touched it, lived it internally long before technology caught up. That is what vision does. It anchors you in a future so compelling that your present actions become aligned, clear, and powerful. Most people hesitate because they cannot see their future. Billionaires move decisively because they already live in theirs. The inner vision portal requires courage because it invites you to believe in something that does not yet exist. It demands that you trust yourself more than you trust your circumstances. It asks you to prioritize your future self over your present fears. This is why the world often misunderstands visionaries. They appear unrealistic, delusional, or detached from reality. But in truth, they are simply tuned to a reality the rest of the world hasn't reached yet. Visionaries do not ask, "Is this possible?" They ask, "What if it is?" And that subtle shift in question changes everything. Vision requires mental spaciousness. If your mind is cluttered with self-doubt, scarcity, fear, comparison, and overwhelm, the future cannot reveal itself to you. Billionaires spend massive amounts of time thinking, not worrying, not reacting, not escaping, thinking. They create mental silence, and in that silence, vision emerges. It appears as a whisper, a nudge, a feeling, a sudden knowing, an intuitive spark. Vision thrives in stillness, not chaos. A powerful example is Sarah Blakely. Before she became a billionaire, she had a clear inner vision of her product transforming women's confidence around the world. The idea of shapewear was not glamorous, and people dismissed her repeatedly. But she held the vision with conviction, allowing it to guide her decisions even when the world offered no agreement. That emotional clarity became the force that built Spanx into a global empire. Her vision arrived years before her success did. Vision also requires emotional resilience. The journey between seeing the future and living it is filled with obstacles, doubts, delays, and contradictions. Most people abandon their vision during these moments because they interpret resistance as a sign to stop. Billionaires interpret resistance as proof that they are moving towards something meaningful. They trust the timing even when it doesn't match their expectations. They maintain the vision even when circumstances contradict it. Their consistency becomes their advantage. Imagine how different your life would be if you allowed yourself to see beyond your current circumstances. What would you create if you believed your future was waiting for you, not testing you? What ideas would you pursue if you trusted your imagination as deeply as billionaires trust theirs? What steps would you take today if you already felt connected to a bigger version of yourself? You have an inner vision portal too. Everyone does. Most people simply never activate it because they are too busy repeating their past. Vision requires faith, and faith feels vulnerable. Vision requires imagination, and imagination feels childish to those who have spent their lives surviving. Vision requires letting go of what is, and letting go feels unsafe when you have learned to cling to certainty. But the truth is this: vision is the birthplace of abundance. Every great invention began as a vision. Every thriving company began as a vision. Every wealthy individual harvested the fruits of a vision long before the world could see the seeds. Vision is the starting point of all prosperity. The moment you allow yourself to dream without restraint, without shame, without apology, you step into the same dimension of possibility where billionaires create their empires. You begin to see opportunities others miss. You begin to attract ideas that didn't exist before. You begin to magnetize circumstances that align with your destiny. The world rearranges itself around the clarity of your vision. When you dare to see your future before it arrives, you unlock a power that has shaped every extraordinary human story throughout history. And once that inner vision ignites, nothing in your life will ever remain the same. Topic 10. The Great Awakening. The moment you realize you were never meant to live an ordinary life. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when something clicks, not intellectually, not logically, but deeply, undeniably, viscerally. A moment when you realize that everything you have admired in billionaires, in visionaries, in creators, in the extraordinary people who reshape history has always existed within you as potential. A moment when you stop seeing wealth, success, and prosperity as distant mountains and begin recognizing them as expressions of an identity you have been slowly, silently uncovering. This is the Great Awakening, the realization that you were never meant to live an ordinary life. You were meant to live a life of expansion, creation, impact, and abundance. Throughout this entire journey, from understanding the hidden billionaire blueprint to shifting your frequency, to cultivating courage, vision, resilience, and powerful networks, you have been assembling the internal architecture of someone who no longer participates in life passively. Someone who thinks, acts, believes, envisions, and decides in alignment with greatness. Someone who realizes the world does not reward the smartest person in the room. It rewards the person who dares to live at the highest expression of who they truly are. Because the truth is, the greatest secret billionaires don't want you to know has nothing to do with money at all. It is that wealth is simply a byproduct of identity. Prosperity is a reflection of inner alignment. Success is a mirror of self-worth. Vision is a doorway to destiny. And the moment you shift who you are being internally, the world begins shifting around you. Billionaires mastered the inner game long before they mastered the outer one. And now you are beginning to do the same. The real transformation begins when you stop chasing money and start embodying the version of yourself who naturally attracts it. When you stop seeking approval and begin trusting your own clarity. When you stop doubting your intuition and start honoring it as the compass it has always been. When you stop shrinking to fit old versions of yourself and start expanding into the future that has been calling your name. The moment you decide to live as the person you were always meant to be, the universe rearranges itself in ways that feel miraculous but are actually just responses to a new frequency you have claimed. This is why certain people rise so rapidly once they make an internal shift. It's not because their circumstances changed. It's because they changed. Their self-perception upgraded. Their standards elevated, their identity expanded, and life simply followed their lead. You have that power too. You always have. Most people never access it because they are too identified with their past, too afraid of their potential, too attached to their comfort zones, too conditioned by limitation. But those patterns are illusions, ghosts of old programming. The moment you see them for what they are, they dissolve. Imagine for a moment that your life is a canvas. And until now, you've only been using a narrow range of colors: fear, doubt, hesitation, scarcity, overthinking, and self-limitations. But now, suddenly, the full spectrum of colors has been revealed to you. Possibility, courage, vision, abundance, clarity, creativity, expansion. This is what it feels like when you awaken to your own potential. You realize the canvas was never the limitation. The limitation was the palette you allowed yourself to use. And now that the full palette is in your hands, you are free to paint a future beyond anything you've ever imagined. The Great Awakening is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet, profound, and deeply personal. It happens in the moment you decide you will no longer negotiate with your fears. In the moment you choose to trust your inner vision more than external opinions. In the moment you realize that abundance is not something you pursue. It is something you embody. And when you embody abundance, the world cannot help but mirror it back to you. Think of the people who changed the world. Oprah rising from trauma into global influence. Bezos turning a simple bookstore into a planetary infrastructure. Jobs transforming technology through imagination. Musk defying industries with visions that seemed unrealistic. Blakely revolutionizing an entire market with one idea born from frustration. None of these people were superhuman. They were simply awake. Awake to possibility. Awake to identity. Awake to an inner calling so powerful that they could no longer shrink themselves to fit a version of life that never belonged to them. And now, right now, you are at that same threshold. You have walked through the inner architecture of prosperity. You have explored the billionaire mindset from every angle. You have learned how identity shapes wealth, how frequency creates opportunity, how resilience transforms obstacles, how courage compounds success, how networks elevate destiny, how vision collapses time, and how inner alignment magnetizes abundance. You are no longer the same person you were at the beginning of this journey. You have shifted, you have expanded, and something inside you knows it. What you do next matters, not because the world expects something from you, but because your soul expects something from you. It expects you to rise. It expects you to remember your power. It expects you to step into the version of yourself that has been whispering from the future, urging you forward. You are not here to live a small life. You are not here to settle, survive, play safe, or dim your light. You are here to wake up to who you truly are. A creator, a visionary, a force of abundance, a generator of ideas that reshape reality. This is the moment you stop asking, "What if it doesn't work?" and begin asking, "What if this is exactly what I was born for?" This is the moment you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself permission. This is the moment you stop repeating the past and begin designing the future. The moment you choose alignment over fear, vision over doubt, expansion over contraction, abundance over scarcity. The greatest secret billionaires don't want you to know is that you don't need to be a billionaire to think, act, and create like one. You only need to awaken to your inner wealth, your ideas, your courage, your intuition, your resilience, your worth, your vision. Once you awaken those, prosperity becomes inevitable. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you become someone who cannot be stopped. This is your invitation to rise, to step into your next level, to walk boldly into your future, to embody the abundance that has always been waiting for you. Your great awakening has begun, and the world is ready for the version of you that is finally ready to take up space, claim your destiny, and create the extraordinary life you were born to live. Before you go, take a moment to honor the version of yourself that showed up today, the version that is ready to rise, ready to expand, ready to step into a life of abundance and possibility. And if this message awakened something inside you, if it shifted your perspective, if it reminded you of your power, then don't let the momentum end here. Subscribe to the channel so you stay connected to this frequency of growth and prosperity. Like this video if it opened your mind or stirred something in your spirit. Leave a comment sharing the breakthrough you experienced, the moment that hit you the hardest, because your voice matters, and someone else may need to hear exactly what you discovered today. And share this video with someone you care about, someone whose potential you believe in, someone who is ready for their own awakening. This is just the beginning of a new chapter for you. Stay close, stay connected, stay expanding. Your future is already waiting. Let's walk toward it together.